Imagine, if after death you get reincarnated into another world but the god accidentally made you the strongest being, what would you do? Haruto is a bullied boy who had withdrawn from the world and had spent 5 years secluded in his room to escape the bullying. However, while watching porn, watching his phone late at night, a bright light shines and he sees a goddess in front of him, leading him to realize that he passed away jerking the chicken. She mentions that she has given him cheat powers to have an easy life. Haruto, who just wants a simple otaku life and likes lazing around, is excited about his reincarnation. After that, he was reborn in another world as a baby prince, bearing the royal sign on his body. The king, excited about his son's potential power, orders a magic test to measure his abilities. The king and his wife, also known as the Princess of Light, have even defeated the Demon King. So, he expects his son to be at least level 40 or 50, but soon everyone is disappointed to find out that he only has a power level of 2 and no attributes. Also, he can only use barrier magic. The king wonders how he could birth such a powerless child and wished he used some protection at that time. Fearing the judgment of others, the world's best parents decide to claim that their child died at birth in order to throw him away in a distant forest. Meanwhile, in the heavenly dimension, Goddess mentions her mistake to another goddess and tells her she accidentally set his level to 1002 while the limit of the magic measuring tool of this world is 2 digits. Helpless and alone, Haruto finds himself in the forest as a defenseless infant. Remembering his ability to create barrier magic, Haruto conjures a cube as a protective barrier. He experiments with its size and shape, using it to levitate himself. However, his solitude is interrupted by the appearance of a large wolf. Panicking, Haruto defends himself and casts hundreds of small cubes to defeat the beast, but they prove ineffective. So, he lifts trees with his barriers and throws them at the wolf. But the wolf still stands up, so he prepares to crush it with a hill, but suddenly a voice offers to surrender. Confused about the voice's source, Haruto proceeds with his attack. Once again, the voice interjects, and to his surprise, it was coming from the wolf, so he stops. Using his barriers to translate his thoughts into words, Haruto communicates with the wolf and explains how he was thrown away. Intrigued by his strength, the wolf wonders if Haruto is the reincarnation of the Demon King and he plays along. The wolf mentions that it's from a Flame Fenrir clan and offers to kill her. But Haruto didn't want to harm her and he starts leaving after calling her Flay. She acknowledges him as his master and promises to devote her life to him. Suddenly, Haruto's energy depletes, and he collapses to the ground, desperately needing nourishment. Flay transforms into a hot fox girl with giant assets, and Haruto asks her to put on some clothes, but she looks even more hotter than before. Haruto asks to feed him, but Flay takes off all her clothes and mentions that she cannot produce milk as she has not made it. She asks his master to penetrate her glory wall with his Excalibur, but it would still take him years before he can actually use it. As they ponder their predicament, someone approaches their location. Haruto suggests communicating with the person before taking any action. Using his barriers, he establishes a telepathic link between himself and Flay. When the man arrives, Flay confronts him to determine his intentions. The man claims to be a relative and expresses his desire to rescue Haruto, and even brought him milk. The man shares a heartfelt story about his wife's miscarriage, expressing his desire to take him in. Moved by his words, Flay is brought to tears and agrees to go with him. He also leaves behind false evidence of Haruto's death. Haruto begged Flay to get the milk, but she insisted that the only milk that he will be drinking is from her assets. Fast forward 9 years, Haruto has grown up under the care of Margrave Gold, living happily with his new family, and Flay serves as their maid. Initially, he planned to leave, but due to the kindness and comfort they provided, he ended up staying. Although his relationship with his sister Charlotte is somewhat tense. His mother tells him that Charles doesn't know how to approach boys of her age, and he thinks that Charles might have sensed his true age, making her resent him. Haruto's mother encourages him to venture outside more, reminding him of his responsibilities as their heir. However, Haruto considers leaving with Flay but knows it would upset them. He has created a duplicate of himself as a substitute, but it remains motionless and voiceless. I'm looking forward to his future doll collection, as it looks like he might be able to create a harem with his own hands. His father insists on teaching him swordsmanship, and Haruto reluctantly agrees. Surprisingly, Haruto displays extraordinary abilities during their training session. His father is puzzled as he dodges his attacks easily, which should have been impossible for someone with a power level of 2. Haruto questions his power level, which remains at 2, despite his true strength, and the highest ever recorded was 77. He thinks it might be because of the blessing from the goddess with huge assets. Later that evening, Haruto's father confides in his wife about his suspicions that Haruto may be a demi-demon, and Charlotte overhears their conversation in shock. Afterwards, we see that Haruto is relieved that he can continue to be a slacker as his father Gold stopped giving him sword lessons due to his busy schedule. Suddenly he hears a commotion outside, and using his magic, he investigates and witnesses injured soldiers. Joining Gold, they assess the situation, revealing persistent thieves attacking their lands. They received intelligence about their hideout and launched a counterattack but fall victim to a surprise ambush. Gold blames himself for the situation, and asks Haruto to return home, deeming the scene unsuitable for a young child. As Haruto walks away in frustration, Flay accompanies him, insulting the soldiers. He asks the foxy bimbo to shut up and continues, secretly casting healing spells to restore the wounded soldiers to perfect health. Gold is also surprised about this. At night his sleep is interrupted when he senses Flay outside and realizes that she took his command literally. He grants her permission to speak, and she offers an apology, but the dumb bimbo still doesn't know why he was mad. Haruto uses his magic to locate the thieves' hideout, realizing they have a spy among them. Determined, he vows to kill them all. Activating his magic, he and Flay soar through the sky, catching the attention of Char, who was still awake. Meanwhile, while the celebrating bandits plan their next attack and mock Gold, Haruto and Flay abruptly burst into the room. The bandits try to get into their fighting stance, but Haruto casts a barrier to freeze their movements and tosses Bucky Beaver against the wall using his magic. He wants to interrogate them and warns them that any lies will result in their death. Interrogation reveals that they are soldiers from a neighboring empire, who are sent to cause internal conflicts. The revelation of an unidentified collaborator within their kingdom shocks them. Haruto realizes that his father's life is in danger. He thanks the bandits before instructing Flay to burn the fort and kill them all. Seems like the bandits received a scorching send-off, and we've got ourselves an MC with questionable morals. As they leave, he decides to send an anonymous letter to his father, providing a detailed account of the events. Gold receives the letter and report but remains puzzled about the enemy's infiltration. Wanting answers, he orders an investigation. When Char inquires about the individuals who dealt with the criminals, Gold suspects Flay, as she is the only one who can control fire to that level, plus her efficiency and lack of compassion are clear marks, but he chooses not to disclose the truth. Char's curiosity about Haruto's actions grows even more as she recalls witnessing him and Flay flying away. So, she asks Flay if there are two of him, as when she visited his room after their departure she saw him sleeping on the bed but it wasn't his regular scary aura. The foxy bimbo unintentionally reveals that Haruto possesses immeasurable power, far surpassing humans or demons. After learning that Char had discovered his clone, Haruto decides to monitor her activities using surveillance barriers. Char continues to follow and spy on Haruto relentlessly, and the dedicated little detective doesn't spare him, even when he's taking a bath. However, he acts like an ordinary child to avoid raising her suspicions. Following a week of stalking, Haruto learns that she along with his mother, Natalia is going to an upcoming annual festival. He suggests bringing along Flay but realizes that she is busy with keeping the local monsters in check following his command. While he is resting in his room, his surveillance alarm alerts him, indicating trouble. Empire soldiers have trapped Natalia and Char during their journey, and their own soldiers struggle to defend them. Natalia tries to defend the soldiers' attack but gets hurt in the process. Suddenly, a small cube beside Char appears, guiding them to escape. They reach a cliff, and Natalia uses her magic to descend. Although her mana is low, they manage to make it. They are then guided to a cave. She tells Char that the hero of justice has guided her and will come to help her, and asks her to stay there so that she can go and get them. When she comes out, the cave gets covered by an illusion magic. Looks like there was no reason for her to come out, but now it's too late as the soldiers have spotted her. In order to avoid capture, she decides to end her own life, but just then the dagger shatters and she is knocked out by stun magic. With his magical powers, Haruto rescues Natalia and defeats the Empire soldiers in seconds. He carries Natalia back to the cave and alters his voice to remain unidentified by Char, and asks her to take care of the unconscious mother. Char, sensing a scary aura, calls him by his name, and the dumbass turns around. Well, it seems keeping a secret identity is overrated. Char questions if he is a hero of justice, and Haruto decides to play along. Back home, Haruto's father receives an anonymous letter about their safety, raising his curiosity about the mysterious hero. As Char and Natalia finally return home, Char surprises Haruto by embracing him, and their parents are shocked, wondering when did they ever get so close, and Flay is jealous as Haruto's harem begins. Char is now obsessed with Haru and privacy isn't in her vocabulary. She always barges in and insists on playing together, and Haru finds it challenging to handle her overwhelming affection. Curious about his activities, Char discovers his surveillance magic, leaving her impressed. He believes it's a lost magic, but surprisingly, she tells him it's not lost and guides him to the castle library. Haru learns that his barrier magic is related to ancient magic, and never expected Char to have such knowledge, assuming the books were too complex for her. However, she reveals to him that her mother and Flay helped her to understand it, and now she wants Haru to read it to her. Sitting on his lap, they explore stories of gods traversing worlds, resembling an anime plot, and Haru wishes that he could watch anime in this world. Char doesn't know what he is talking about, but he tells her that she wouldn't understand. However, she insists on him explaining it to her. After knowing more about anime, Char expresses her desire to watch. So, Haru resolves to make Char join the otaku club and gets to work. After 2 weeks, he managed to get a modern Japanese internet connection through his magic, and his streaming subscription was still active, which he can access, because he is the MC. He creates a kid's profile for Char and allows her to choose an anime show. Despite her inability to understand the Japanese language, she is still amazed by the animated drawings come to life. Haru thinks it would be hard for her to learn a new language, but he is shocked as she manages to learn it in 2 hours. 2 weeks pass, and we see Char barging in, eager to watch the latest episode of her favorite anime. As she becomes engrossed in the anime, Haru wonders if she is a genius, as she mastered Japanese just by watching anime. However, as her big bro, he feels the need to set boundaries so that she doesn't get spoiled, and limits her viewing time to 3 hours a day. During dinner, Char struggles to stay awake, and her father Gold wonders what she has been up to, but she tells him that they are studying ancient magic. Char follows Haru around, but to her dismay, he tells her she can't watch any more anime and asks her to take a bath and go to sleep. Surprisingly, Char joins Haru in the bath and suddenly starts staring at him and asks about the weird thing on his body. I meant the emblem on his chest. She identifies it as his proof of being an ally of justice, while Haru insists on keeping this a secret, telling her that heroes of justice need to hide their identities. They bid each other good night, but Char ends up sleeping next to Haru, much to their mother's delight, while Haru wishes for his personal space. The next day, Gold leaves for a mission to catch a group of thieves, leaving Char worried for his safety. She is depressed, but Haru assures her that their father will be fine. Char asks Haru to use his powers to fight the bad guys and insists he transforms like in the anime. Reluctantly, Haru agrees and transforms into a cheap version of Zero. Char wishes to go with him, but since it's too dangerous for her to accompany him, he sets up a magical live stream to witness his heroic acts before setting off. Haru locates the thieves in a cave and uses his barrier magic to trap them inside. While typically this should be enough, Haru decides to put on a show since Char is watching. He arrives at the scene, presenting himself as an ally of justice. Despite their attempt to rush him, Haru effortlessly defeats them, deliberately holding back since Char is watching. Just then, Gold arrives, wondering who he is. Haru, who couldn't come up with a cool name, makes up a random name, which meant still pending. Gold wonders about his true purpose and he simply states he is an ally of justice and quickly retreats, feeling embarrassed by the situation. However, Char finds him exceptionally cool and expresses her desire to witness more of his cringe, much to his disbelief. So, he kept going to battles and eventually became known as the Black Knight. Well, at least they didn't name him Zero. Over time, Haru manages to perfect his clone, thanks to the knowledge he gained from the library books. While the clone gains the ability to speak, it mirrors Haru's laziness and personality. As they say, double the laziness, double the fun. Char wakes up in Haru's bed and is shocked to see two Harus. Suddenly, they are interrupted to join a meeting, and Haru asks his clone to take his place. However, the clone refuses, leading Haru to realize that he won't find a replacement for his laziness. Their family welcomes royal guests, Prince Laius and Princess Marianne, and Haru wonders if they are his real siblings. Laius behaves like a typical D-bag. Although Marianne attempts to control him, he shuts her down, highlighting their differences as he is the next heir to the throne. While Haru is surprised by his behavior, Laius calls him out for staring at him and challenges him to a fight, underestimating his level. Haru measures his power using his assessment magic and learns that his level is 9 and his sister is at level 14, while Gold is at 32. Laius charges at Haru, but Haru evades effortlessly, frustrating Laius. He asks Haru not to run away, so he casts a barrier to shield himself and allows Laius to beat him up. Laius continues to relentlessly attack him and asks him to fight back, and Haru decides to show off his abilities by easily overpowering him. Laius then starts attacking him using his fire spell but gets easily absorbed by Haru's barrier, and when Haru tries to throw it back, Laius admits defeat. Marianne apologizes for her brother's behavior and is astonished by his abilities. As Haru returns to his room, he wonders if this will attract the attention of his real parents. Char has been actively patrolling lately, which has been quite a trouble for Haru, as it increases his workload, and interferes with his jerking schedule. The dumb bimbo finally returns and wants to help, but Haru worries she'll cause trouble. He confirms that Flay has completed her other tasks, and she excitedly proposes teaming up. Char is excited about her being Haru's sidekick, and Haru reluctantly agrees, but warns Flay not to use excessive violence as Char is watching. They encounter a group of thieves, and Haru introduces himself as the Black Knight, which stands for cheap version of Zero, and Flay introduces her as the Red Knight in black costume. Flay is ready to attack, and it looks like she's out for blood, disregarding Haru's commands. Haru casts a barrier to save them, and Flay is surprised that it didn't work. As she's about to unleash her ultimate move, Haru knocks some sense into the dumb bimbo, and asks her to head back while he handles the rest. The dumb bimbo still doesn't know why her attack failed, and considers to use more power next time. Haru is exhausted and doesn't want to do it again, but seeing how happy it made Char, he decides to do it with Flay again. I meant the teaming up. Meanwhile, we see Laius, who's still upset about his defeat and wonders how Haru defeated him, despite his lower level. His minister arrives, reminding him to prepare for the dinner party, and suggests inviting Char to join them as his partner for the ride. Laius initially dismisses the idea, but he insists that it's for his sake and he reluctantly agrees. After the dinner party, Char arrives with his clone carrying his dinner. The clone tells him about the miserable experience he had. His clone is miserable being his double, and jumps into bed. Char mentions that she has to join the inspection tomorrow as the prince has invited her, and Haru wonders if he has a lolicon, which is ironic coming from a guy who bathed with her. Seeing his clone exhausted, Haru decides to take Char on the tour instead. Later that night, Haru checks the tour route for Char's safety. He sees a suspicious group summoning something, so he decides to investigate. The men are shocked to see him and attack with spells, but Haru effortlessly defeats them. A magic circle activates, conjuring creepy skeletons. Haru battles them, but they keep rising until he notices crystals on their chests. He turns the skeletons against their own. The leader summons a huge golem, which knocks him into a tree, and he mentions he underestimated its power, but he spots another crystal and attacks it, making the golem fight on his side. Their leader wonders what happened, and he explains that he accidentally controlled it while trying to restrict its movement, and apologized to them, and I'm not sure if he really meant it or was being sarcastic. After that, he captures the men and interrogates the leader, threatening to bury them all, and plot twist. It's revealed that all the attacks were planned by the queen, his biological mother, to assassinate Char because she fears Char will surpass her. Well, now we know where our MC inherited his dark side from. Haru grows furious, and determined to protect those he loves, he vows to challenge the queen, even if she's his real mother. The next day, we see Flay on top of the ride. Char tries to cheer up Laius about his defeat against his brother, but ends up adding insult to his injury by mentioning that he should be proud to score a hit against him, when he never stood a chance at all. Laius asks him how he did it, and he just tells him that he can use enhancement magic just by thinking about becoming strong, shocking Laius and Marianne. They wonder if he is a demi-demon, and Char explains to him that when human and demon get married their children are known as demi-demon. I like how naive Char is, who thinks it's required to be married to have children. Marianne thinks it makes sense, but notes he looks like a normal boy, and Char vouches for him, telling that he has smooth and clean body as she has bathed with him, causing both Laius and Marianne to be embarrassed. As they wonder how perverted Haru is, Char asks if that's not allowed. Marianne tries to explain the deeper meaning of bathing together, but she becomes brain-dead just thinking about it. They arrive at a wheat field, and Haru chats with his father. As an example, he asks him what would he do if the queen targets Charlotte's life. His father is surprised and reveals that he got a letter from the Black Knight which mentioned he defeated the queen's wizard. He acknowledges the real threat, and Haru mentions that she should disappear, but his father points out the chaos it would cause, as she was the one who beheaded the Demon King, and is considered a hero. He believes Char will grow stronger, and has the potential to be the queen and suggests Haru looks out for her until then. Flay offers to take out the queen, but Haru declines, considering it personal. He believes the queen will try again soon, so he decides it time to give his real mother a visit. Back at the Emperor's palace, the queen, Giselot, questions her men's excuse for their failed plan to kill Charlotte. They reveal that a mysterious man known as the Black Knight, who is actually Haru, is defending Gold's family, and also defeated the summoned mages. Giselot is frustrated with her men's failures and even throws wine at one of them. She mentions that she wants to kill Charlotte because she sees her as a future threat to her position. Giselot decides to confront the Black Knight alone and kill him using her holy sword. Just then Haru arrives, and he easily defeats her men using his barrier magic. She wonders how he managed to get in as she has set up barriers, but he mentions that he broke them easily. She attacks him with her magic and traps him in a water bubble, but he easily escapes it. She then attacks him again using ice crystals and fire magic. However, Haru is unharmed and attacks her with his own magic. She barely blocks it and Haru continues to overwhelm her with his powerful attacks. Her mana continues to deplete as she tries to protect herself, and she wonders if he is stronger than Demon Lord. She goes on to attack him with her holy sword, mentioning that she is the strongest in the world and no one can beat her, but Haru is not impressed and defeats her easily. After that, he punishes her by binding her with a slave collar and tells her if she tries to remove it forcefully, her head will be severed. He asks her to stay away from Gold's family and their state affairs. He tells her that only he can remove the slave collar, so she should behave if she wants to be free. Leaving Giselot in despair, the Black Knight bids his goodbye and leaves. Overwhelmed with mixed emotions, Giselot laughs and cries, feeling like a slave in her own domain, wondering how everything went wrong. As Haru leaves with Flay, she asks why he went so easy on her, and he tells her that he won't be so forgiving next time if she does something again, and the sadist bimbo is excited about it. 5 years pass, and it's wintertime. Ever since Haru had warned Giselot, there has been no incident. Haru feels the chill and boredom, but Char and Flay enjoy the season. Char builds a food badge, while Flay builds an amazing snow castle, shocking Haru. While checking out Flay's huge assets, he wonders if she's not feeling cold. Flay pretends she's fine, but she's actually shivering. Haru uses magic to transform them into warm winter clothes, and Flay feels relieved and thanks him. Char then asks Haru to perform a special move that she is unable to do, and he agrees, while Flay wonders if he has a Siscon. Based on Char's instruction, he performs the special move and creates a hole in the ground. Char is happy to see it, but just then their parents arrive and notice the hole. To avoid suspicion, he quickly conjures a fake Black Knight clone, pretending he was responsible for the damage while showing them a special move. Char agrees with him, so Gold lets it off and they continue to have fun. After some time, Gold chats with Haru and mentions that everything is peaceful as Giselot is no longer after Char, and rumors say she wears a slave collar, staying inside her palace. Gold reveals Haru will attend the Magic Academy in the capital after winter, but Haru resists, not wanting to face school horrors. He gets depressed, as this may be the end of his otaku life. Later Haru tries to talk it out with Gold so that he can avoid going to the academy. Gold mentions that the king himself has recommended him and he can't do anything about it. Gold assumes that Princess Marianne has taken a liking to him, but Haru suspects Giselot's involvement. Reluctantly he agrees to go, and Gold suggests that he needs to find a caretaker. Haru doesn't want Flay as she is troublesome. Natalia offers, but they refuse, finding it awkward. He decides to think about it later as they still have 3 months' time. After that, Haru, being the ultimate slacker he is, decides to skip going to the academy by planning to send his clone, who refuses. Haru mentions that if his power got exposed it would become a problem with their otaku life, so he plans to use the magicless clone as a scapegoat, and promises to put an enchantment magic for protection. Haru also mentions that he can always create new clones, and reluctantly the poor clone has no choice but to accept. After winter ends, we see Haru resting in his lakeside cottage which he built over 5 years that he can use to shut himself in, and play with his thing to his heart's content, I meant the video game. However, his peace is interrupted when Char and Flay join him. While Flay is here to clean, Char is there to watch anime. She shares her struggle with limited anime time due to her studies, and she's not allowed to visit his room since she's now a lady. To help her, Haru decides to try out teleportation magic, so that she can visit him. He tries first with a ball and it works. Now for a real person test, he asks his clone to go through the teleportation gate, but he refuses to be his guinea pig and mocks Haru for being afraid to test it himself. Flay gets annoyed by this, and she goes to the other side and throws the clone back. Haru then creates a teleportation gate to the castle, and as they leave he remembers that he still needs to find a caretaker. The story continues with Haru being a lazy ass as usual, and enjoying playing video games in his lakeside cabin. Char is also there watching her favorite anime shows, and Flay is doing the cleaning. Suddenly he remembers that he needs to find an attendant, and leaves, making Char and Flay suspicious, as he has not told them about going to academy in 3 months and finding an attendant. As he walks through the forest he notices that the skeleton's followers he made 5 years ago have settled in quite well with the land he gave them. Their commander, Johnny, welcomes him, and he gives him a tour of other places. He learns that they have started taking in stray monsters brought by Flay. The skeletons have also started farming, and grown crops to feed the monsters living there, and they plan to take in more monsters. Haru is amazed by this, and he thinks if he can add some skin to Johnny he can make a good attendant. But there's a problem, he's a chatterbox, so he drops the idea. He praises him for his work, and moves on. He sits near a lake to relax, and wonders how the place which he intended to spend time alone, became a monster paradise. Just then he's joined by the golem, Gigan. He's surprised to know that it's a girl, and she wants to be part of his harem. Although Haru thinks that she would make a good attendant, but because of her size it's not possible. He returns back to his cabin, and sees Flay being suspicious about him. He recalls his father's advice to not select Flay, and tells her to mind her own business, making her sad. The following day Char comes up with a new superhero name for him, and instead of Black Knight she suggests the name, Shiva, which refers to a supreme deity that controls destruction and creation, and Haru feels sorry for turning her like this. After that, Flay introduces Char to the chatterbox, and he explains about the place. Char, being the naming master, decides to name the place as Pandemonium, impressing Johnny. After that, we see a blizzard dragon being attacked by some adventurers who are trying to hunt it down for money. It tries to escape but it's injured, and causes an avalanche. The dragon gets hit by the avalanche, and gets knocked out. Later, Gold informs Haru about the appearance of a dragon near their empire border. Gold is concerned as it might endanger civilian life if it goes on a rampage, so he asks Flay's help to check the situation since she's a demon, but she refuses. She mentions only her master can order her, so Haru orders her but she's still reluctant. She tells him that she has never heard of a blue dragon, which means it didn't participate in their great war against humans, so she doesn't want to protect such a cowardly dragon. Char overhears their conversation, and requests Flay to protect the dragon from adventurers, and eventually she agrees. They find the dragon in a worn-out state with adventurers approaching to hunt it. As the adventurers try to attack it, Haru and Flay show up. Haru starts healing the dragon, and Flay, being the dumb bimbo she is, tries to kill all the adventurers with her flame. Luckily Haru uses his barrier magic, so they're just knocked out. Haru introduces himself to the dragon, but it attacks him with its blizzard power and freezes him. Haru is pissed, and yells at the dragon for its betrayal of getting saved by him. Suddenly, he hears the dragon's voice, and tries to talk with it, but it totally ignores him and asks Flay why she is following him being a demon. Flay explains to her about Haru being the Demon King reincarnation. We then learn that the dragon was an ultimate shut-in on a whole other level, as it was living in a hold-up life for 300 years. Haru is impressed by this, and demands to learn more. The dragon tells its story about spending all its days curled up inside a cave. One day an adventurer stopped by and left a book behind. The dragon started reading it and got addicted, so kept reading it again, and desired to read more. Eventually, it ventured into town disguised in human form, and found more books. From then on, she visited human villages to bring back books, gaining knowledge. However, adventurers discovered her, and burned down her place along with the books, but it escaped. Flay is moved by its story and accepts the dragon as one of her comrades, permitting her entry into Pandemonium. Haru wonders what that is, and Flay explains it's the name Char gave to the skeleton village. The dragon then declares Haru as its master, and as it begins to transform, Haru realizes what happened with Flay and instantly dresses her up, preventing plot scenes for the viewers. The dragon transforms into a cute girl, and Flay is worried about her spot in his harem. Haru takes off his mask and introduces him. He learns that she doesn't have a name, so he names her Liza. He asks her to follow him home, and is surprised to see that she can fly in her human form. Flay decides not to be outdone by her, and follows them on foot. The story continues, and we see Haru introducing his new harem member to his family. He wants his family to accept Liza as their maid. His mom and sister think she is cute, and Gold wonders as to how he managed to tame a dragon, but doesn't care anymore. He's fine to let her work as long as she takes care of him as well. Later we see Flay teaching the job of maid to Liza, but it looks like the dumb bimbo is showing what not to do as a maid. Flay tries to show her how to clean, but she breaks the broom while Liza uses it perfectly. Flay then takes her to the kitchen where she breaks every plate which she tries to wash while Liza cleans it well. Flay also tries to show off her cooking skill, but she burns down the food, while Liza cooks a perfect dish, impressing the fellow maids. Even Gold and his family are also impressed by the food which Liza made. Haru's mom asks if Liza has any other skill, to which she tells her that she likes reading books and also knows magic. Hearing this, she makes Liza Char's personal maid, while Flay is sad that Liza is now becoming their favorite maid. The following day, Liza continues her duties as Char's personal maid and teaches her magic. She also assists Char with her studies, and they get along well. This routine continues, and one day, Haru notices that Char's magic has improved under Liza's guidance. He is impressed to see Liza multitasking. She is teaching Char magic while also doing the laundry. Char then asks Liza to be her friend, and they become friends. Haru realizes that Liza would make a perfect attendant, but he doesn't want to separate her from Char, as they just become friends. However, he devises a plan to utilize his magical teleportation door. With this door, he can temporarily take Liza away to fulfill her duties as his maid and then return her to Char using the magic door. So now that his attendant problem is solved, the lazy otaku just needs to devise a plan to drop out early from school. After some time, we see that Char is feeling down because she's finished watching her favorite anime show. However, Haru consoles her by mentioning that a new show will start airing next week. Just as Char is about to leave after her break, Haru drops a bombshell. He informs her that he will be attending school at the royal capital starting next week. This revelation shocks her. Seeing all those anime seems to have a serious effect on her, so she asks Liza to gather all the knights for a round table meeting, while Haru wonders whether he may have spoiled his little sister. Later on, we see Char meeting with Liza, Flay, Johnny, and Golem, who are the knights she referred to. Char informs them about Haru's plan to attend school, and they are shocked. Flay nearly slips up by accidentally referring to him as the Demon King, and Char is suspicious that they are keeping a secret from her. However, Johnny, being a smooth talker, quickly manages the situation. Char explains that while watching an anime featuring a school, she asked Haru about the nature of such places. Haru, being the bullied loser he was, told her that schools are terrifying and dangerous. Since Haru is willing to go to a place like that, Char interprets this as a sign that there must be an evil organization luring students towards a dark path, and Haru intends to go there and stop it. She plans to take Flay and Liza to the capital to gather information covertly, while Johnny and Golem will work on developing Pandemonium. She wants to act in secret without letting Haru worry about it. Later that night, Liza reports back to Haru, sharing everything she has discovered, and inquires about fighting the evil organization. Haru plays along, telling her that he has been operating in secret. He then asks her to accompany him as his personal attendant, and she agrees. Unbeknownst to Liza, Haru secretly hopes to utilize her as a means to unravel the mystery of the fake evil organization and drop out early from school. As the story continues, we see Haru saying his goodbyes to his family as he prepares to leave for the academy, with Liza accompanying him as his assistant. She's feeling a bit uncomfortable because he has made her horns and tail invisible. Flay is devastated that he's not taking her with him as his assistant and begs him to reconsider, but the lolly lover doesn't budge. Char consoles her and wishes Haru good luck. We then see Marianne barging into Laisa's room with a letter about Haru leaving for the capital, and it's revealed that he was the one who planned for Haru to join the academy because he wanted to see his true potential. Marianne tells him that losing to Haru has changed him, but he is still as cocky as ever. Laius tells her that he knows she was the one who forced the king to write a recommendation letter for Haru. She blushes and accidentally reveals that she likes him, and Haru has another member on his harem list. Laius then informs her that some cult is controlling the school, and Marianne tells him it's a new sect of the state religion called Luciferist, where they worship devils. It is revealed that they plan to overthrow the king, with many nobles already joining their cause, and there are rumors that their mother, Giselot, is funding them. Laius mentions that she changed due to what happened to her 5 years ago but never revealed who put the collar on her. He suspects that she is trying to take down his father, and Laius is afraid of her. Marianne believes that Haru may have the power to stop her since they haven't seen his full potential yet. Laius then mentions the Black Knight, who was seen on Gold's territory and rumored to have defeated a dragon. He considers asking him for help, but just then Giselot enters and greets her children. She then chokes Marianne, thinking she was looking at her collar. Laius pleads with her to stop, and she releases Marianne. She had overheard their conversation and asked Laius to get closer to Haru to gather more information on the Black Knight. She then leaves, and Laius thinks that he may have unintentionally dragged Haru into this mess. The scene then cuts to Char, reminding Haru that it's time to go to the academy. It's revealed that after he left home in his carriage, he came to his lake house. He has already set up a teleportation door in the forest near to the capital, so he was lazing around until the day to reach the capital came. Flay again begs Haru to take her, but Char consoles her, and tells Haru that she'll take care of it. Haru uses the teleportation door to reach near the capital, along with Liza. They notice a carriage being attacked by a monster bull, who got separated from the herd. The lazy hero first decides to do nothing, but then thinks that he may get in trouble if Char finds about it, so he changes to his Shiva form, and goes to rescue them. He uses his barrier magic to save a kid from falling off the carriage. He then sees a girl jumping in to fight the bull, and thinks she may be strong. So he plans to leave, and let her be the hero. But she gets severely injured, and just when the bull is about to finish her off, Haru jumps in, knocking down the bull. He then heals her, and fixes their carriage. He also puts on a cringy introduction about being the hero of justice, and the kid likes it. He decides to take the bull back to its herd as it did nothing to him. The girl is impressed by his thought of even caring for the monsters, and Haru may have another potential member for his harem. After that, Haru feeds the bull, and sends it on his way. Liza tells him that she felt a weird aura from the girl but doesn't know what it was. They then reach the academy, and see a long line of registration. Haru fills up the paperwork for registration, and seems like this task is more challenging for him than defeating monsters. He's exhausted by the end of the day, and goes back to the lake house using the teleportation door. He's hungry, and Flay is ready to prepare a special dish for her master, but Char wishes to go to the capital restaurant. She whispers something in Flay's ear, and convinces her. Haru then hides Flay's ear and tail, so that she's not recognized as a monster girl. They reach the capital, and enjoy their meal. We learn that Char's goal was to get more info on the evil cult, so after the meal, she asks Flay and Liza to survey the area to get the accurate layout of the town, while she will tour with Haru. She calls this a date, and Haku's heart skips a beat, as the lazy otaku never had this experience even in his past life. He then hangs out with her, buying her stuff, and feels happy. During their date, Char bumps into the same girl from the carriage incident. She tells Haru that she senses enormous power from him, but he tells her that his magic level is only 2, so she apologizes, and leaves. Char mentions that she sensed something strange from her, and Haru wonders that Liza also said the same thing. But he doesn't care, as starting tomorrow he plans to hole up and laze around until the ceremony. Afterward, Haruto's clone informs him about the upcoming proficiency test before the entrance ceremony, but the clone won't take the exam as it has been tough for him to be stuck in this room for the past few days. However, Haruto sees this as an opportunity to potentially get expelled from the academy by purposefully failing the exam. Haruto tries to sneak into the exam hall to avoid social interaction but is caught by a teacher who was expecting him, and takes him to the exam hall. The impressive classroom amazes him, but when he thinks about meeting his classmates, he is terrified, and the teacher wonders, why is he having a stroke? As Haruto receives his exam paper, he decides to answer every question incorrectly, but realizes that he actually has no clue about any of the questions, so his master plan is to write, "no clue," for all the answers. In the barrier magic section, he decides to answer some questions correctly to avoid suspicion and describes his barrier's capabilities. Haruto then attempts the ancient magic section, recalling his fondness for an author with a long name whose books he enjoyed. He gets carried away and writes detailed answers, then worries about writing too much. The teacher then calls him for the mana level assessment, but he tells them that his level is only 2, and they don't need to measure it. However, the school policy requires the assessment. The teacher, Polkos, escorts Haruto to a tiny professor named Tirieta Lusional. She takes an interest in Haruto's appearance but warns him that she'll send him back home if he gets on her bad side. Haruto gets excited hearing this, and she is turned on by his fearless behavior. She mentions that her chest will swell up due to the rising heartbeat because of Haruto, but Haruto doesn't see any plot development there, and wonders how long he will have to put up with her. Polkos hands her Haruto's answer sheet, and she has a serious expression on her face, and Haruto is hopeful that she didn't like his garbage answers. He then proceeds for his mana level assessment, and the crystal ball shatters to pieces, shocking everyone. Haruto thinks that she must be pissed as he broke her crystal, and hopes that she sends him home right away. But to his surprise, she is amazed, as she thinks that the crystal couldn't handle his power. She tells Polkos that the Mija crystal they used has its own logic, and they should research it further. The psycho teacher then tells him that she likes his courage by writing, "no clue," for the answers. She also loves his answers for the barrier section, and is even more impressed with how perfectly he copied her when answering the ancient magic potion. Haruto realizes that she was the author with the long name. She then decides to take Haruto under her wing, and Haruto learns that this was her plan all along. She asks him to join her research, but he rejects her right away and walks off. Haruto then shares what happened with his clone, and the clone can't believe that Haruto managed to make a good impression instead of getting expelled. Despite this setback, they remain determined. After that we see Char giving the clone Haruto a gun, and wishing him luck. The clone doesn't want to attend the entrance ceremony, but he has no choice, as being a clone he's bound to follow the original's orders. He explains that since he has no magic abilities, Haruto has casted a defensive barrier on him, and the gun serves as a means of self-defense. After the entrance ceremony concludes, the clone believes his day's events are over and immediately rushes back. On his way, he sees a group of students and aims to avoid getting in contact with them. Suddenly, one of the blonde guys asks him to stop, but he's relieved when he notices that he was referring to the white-haired girl in front of him. As the clone attempts to walk away, keeping his head down, he bumps into 2 giant cannons, and the girl seems to recognize him. Just then, the blondie asks why they didn't salute them, to which the girl mentions she didn't read anything about it in the academy handbook. The blondie introduces himself as Schneidel, the vice president, and demands her to bow down. The girl, new to the academy, expresses her ignorance, and Schneidel directs the clone to explain the situation to her, though the clone thinks about his own lack of knowledge. To evade the situation, the clone lies about a stomach ache and tells them he's about to shit his pants, but Schneidel thinks he's mocking him and fires a spell, striking the clone. However, the clone is unharmed due to Haruto's defensive spell, and everyone is shocked. The clone realizes that he should have pretended to be in pain and starts acting like he is in pain, but his act fails to deceive them. The girl then goes to the clone, and apologizes for involving him, but she still doesn't know the cause of Schneidel's anger, and the clone thinks she's even worse than him. Schneider gets even angrier and tries to use his ultimate spell to finish them off, but the clone fires his gun and runs away. Later the clone briefs Haruto about the events, and mentions that he was also chased around by that little professor. Haruto asks his clone to get rest, and wonders what's wrong with this school having a magic battle without any warning. A girl delivers a duel letter from Schneider to Haruto, who refuses to accept it. However, she emphasizes the potential damage to Margrave's reputation, and if he purposely loses, he will suffer even worse fate. Later, back in his room, Haruto reflects on the unfortunate turn of events. He thinks about a plan to intentionally lose the upcoming duel but is concerned about harming himself in the process. As he thinks about his situation, he notices the letter delivery girl escorting the white-haired girl in a carriage and wonders if they're heading to Schneidel's house. The scene shifts to Schneidel's mansion, where we learn that the white-haired girl has come to request him to call off the duel. She takes responsibility for the situation and tells him that Schneider is in no condition to fight due to his injuries. Schneider, however, demands an apology before considering her request. The girl apologizes, but Schneider remains unsatisfied and asks her to dance naked as a small price for his forgiveness. The girl agrees to this absurd demand, and Haruto is shocked. She begins undressing, and Haruto can't take this anymore. So, before she reveals the full plot, he uses his magic to turn off the lights. He appears before the girl as Shiva and gives back her dress. He scolds her for her actions, and asks her to have more self-respect. He then confronts Schneider, informing him that they are in a separate dimension. Haruto introduces himself as Shiva, the enforcer of justice, and places a vice block on Schneider's shoulder, accusing him of committing 3 sins. The first is picking a fight with a new student, the second is attempting to duel his junior, and the third is sexually harassing a girl. Haruto tells Schneider that the vice block is his punishment, and any attempt to remove it will only make it tighter. He asks that Schneider call off the duel, and he will remove the block once Schneider has atoned for his sins. The lights return, and the student's attempts to heal Schneider only cause him more pain. He screams in pain and tells them to stop, which makes some students laugh. Schneider is furious, and mentions that Shiva won't get away with this. As the story continues, we see that Haru is being praised by all the teachers for defeating Schneider and wonders if he is actually level 2. Haru is disappointed, as he thought he would be kicked out of the school for his actions, but instead, he was praised. As he walks to his room, he hears students talking about him defeating the Duke's son. The introvert MC can't take this attention and rushes back to his room. On the way, he is stopped by Tirieta, who tries to convince him to join his lab. She explains the 2 courses available in the academy, and he has to choose one. The first one is the night course where he'll learn about magic and its application, for students aspiring to become soldiers to serve their country. The second one is the scholar course where he'll shut himself in a lab and invent new magic. She asks him to join her lab since he's interested in ancient magic and urges him to sign the papers, but he still hesitates to join her. Just then, Laius arrives, attempting to greet him with a friendly punch, and Haru quickly puts him to the ground, wondering who he is. Marianne arrives, and Haru realizes that it's Laius. Laius wonders if Haru has grown stronger, and Haru wonders what kind of steroids Laius has been taking. Haru asks them what they want, and Laius tells him not to be so formal, but Haru clarifies that he was speaking to his sister, which annoys Laius. Marianne wants Haru to join her lab, while Laius wants him to join his lab, but Tirieta interrupts them, asserting that Haru will join her lab, and they start fighting over Haru. Just then, the white-haired girl interrupts them, as she has some business with Haru. Haru uses this opportunity to leave with her and escape the situation. Everyone is shocked, and Marion wonders about his relationship with the white-haired girl. As they reach outside, the white-haired girl asks him if he is the same person from yesterday as he seems different. Haru is shocked and accidentally casts a protection barrier. Although she can't see the barrier, she can still feel it, and he is surprised. She tells him that compared to yesterday, she senses a massive amount of magic energy from him, and she's overwhelmed by the pressure. Haru realizes that till now, only Flay has ever mentioned this, and he asks her if she's a demon. She tells him that she's a human, and if she's not, it would be a problem, while Haru thinks that she answers everything in a strange way. He removes the barrier and asks her to pretend that both persons she saw from yesterday and today are the same. However, he can't tell her more about it, and she agrees. She then apologizes to him for dragging him into the Sheeter incident and also thanks him for his help with it. She then requests him to be friends, and he accidentally accepts. He wonders why she wants to be his friend, and she tells her story about how she was abandoned after being born and kept getting thrown out 4 more times. Haru asks her about the reason, and she tells him it started happening after she started to communicate with others. Haru thinks it might be similar to how he talked to Flay as a baby, as a talking baby would be surprising to normal people. She tells him that finally, a monastery took her in, but the only priest who was nice to her died when she was at the age of 5. Since it was an isolated place, she couldn't communicate with anyone, so she doesn't have any common sense. She wants to befriend Haru to learn about the same, but he tells her that she got the wrong person as he is the ultimate shut-in with no friends or common sense. She thinks it's perfect as they are both similar, and Haru thinks about the friends he had in the previous life who always used to make him do stuff for them. This gives him an idea, and he thinks of using her to avoid troublesome stuff at school. So, he decides to become her friend and asks about the course which she had planned to take. He learns that she's going to join Tirietta's lab, and he decides to join the same. This makes the girl happy, and she expresses her gratitude to him, and Haru wonders why he always gets these nutcases in his harem. He formally introduces himself, and as she's about to reveal her name, the scene cuts to Haru's harem enjoying their hot bath. Char and Flay are upset about Haru being in the academy. Suddenly, Char thinks of something and goes off. As Liza and Flay chat, Liza learns that Flay was close to the Demon King. Flay tells her that he was a kind person who wished for humans and demons to live side by side. She tells her that he sacrificed himself when the Princess of Light appeared but thinks he had planned to reincarnate as a human. She believes that Haru is the Demon King, and he wiped his memories of his past life to throw away his naive side. Back when he named her, she almost called him by his real name which he used as Demon Lord, Irish Philia, and we see that it's the same name that the white-haired girl tells Haru. Haru thinks it's a long name and decides to call her Iris. She then suggests picking out the classes together, and they go to his room. As they enter the room, Char is already there, who is shocked to see Haru with a girl and wonders if she is his girlfriend. He clarifies to her that she's just a friend, and she's relieved. Char mentions that she's not against Haru building a harem, but she wants to become his second wife in the future, and Haru hopes that she doesn't dump him when she gets old, while Iris wonders if this is a normal conversation between siblings. After that, Haru starts picking classes by rolling a dice, and Iris wonders about this. Char explains that any class that Haru picks will be a cakewalk for him, although Haru doesn't really care about the classes as he plans to drop out. He gets bored after a while and asks Char to pick the rest of the classes for him. Iris is surprised at how Haru lets Char pick her classes, and Char tells her that Haru's purpose to come here is beyond this academy, and it's a secret, so she can't tell her. She also mentions that her brother is a transcendent being who doesn't need to learn from anyone else, and Iris is shocked to hear this. Haru thinks that he can't let her sister loose like this, so he asks her to leave. As Iris wonders how Char got here, Haru covers Iris's eyes so that she doesn't notice the teleportation door. Although Iris is suspicious, he asks her not to worry about it, and hopes to get dropped out of the school soon. As the story continues, we see Char waking up alongside Haru, and it appears that her plot development is progressing well. She proceeds to explain that based on his entrance exam, he has been assigned to Class C out of the 5 available classes. She tells him that his class assignment can change depending on his performance, and she believes he will be in Class A in no time. Haru notices that, aside from their shared classes, Char has selected the most difficult classes typically taken by seniors. Initially surprised, he starts thinking this might be an opportunity to disappoint his teachers, and potentially get expelled from school. As he attempts to leave, Char unexpectedly asks him for a hug. Haru hugs her, and wonders if the siscon development is getting out of hand, while Char seems happy as her plan to become the second wife in his harem appears to be proceeding as planned. At school, he meets Iris, and introduces Liza as his attendant. Iris has been placed in Class A, but is surprised that Haru is in Class C despite his great potential, and believes he will quickly move up to Class A. As Iris leaves, Liza mentions to Haru that she still can't tell whether Iris is a demon or a human, but he tells her that it doesn't matter for now. Later, as Haru enters the classroom, he realizes that everyone's attention is on him, likely due to rumors about him defeating a senior student. The teacher then conducts a test, and Haru views this as his opportunity to perform poorly, and potentially get dropped from the class. As the test commences, Haru quickly realizes that all the questions are surprisingly easy, similar to what Char learned as a child. Fearing that intentionally performing too poorly might raise suspicions, he plans to aim for a score around 60 points, which he believes should be considered a poor score for such a straightforward test. Later, the teacher is back in the classroom with the test results, and it turns out that the class's average score is 50 points. He tells that Haru has achieved the highest score of 60 points, and everyone cheers for him, while Haru is shocked. He comes to the realization that it's not because the class is lacking in skill or that he's overly skilled, rather, it's due to his sister being a genius, which made him think that the test was simple. Consequently, the teacher promotes Haru to Class A, much to his disappointment. Upon entering Class A, both Iris and Laius want Haru to be with them, and they fight over him. At that moment, Professor Oratoria Velcom, who specializes in magical attributes, enters the scene. She immediately scolds them for chatting in her class, and warns them to throw out if they can't answer her questions. Also, she seems to have some grudge against Tirieta, as she mentions to take extra care of Haru and Iris, and poor Haru finds himself once again caught in an unexpected situation. Professor Oratoria proceeds to assess their magical attributes, starting with Iris. She is surprised to discover that Iris possesses all the magical attributes, which is quite rare, even though her magic level is only 5. The professor attempts to persuade Iris to join her lab, but Iris declines her offer. She then proceeds to explain that the crystal can only measure the main attribute, but for other secondary attributes, it's difficult to analyze them, and ongoing research is focused on putting them into numbers. Haru wonders if it's really that challenging, as he can see all the attributes using his measuring magic. The professor mentions that attribute numbers can vary based on circumstances. For instance, someone might use their secondary attribute, like fire, to enhance their muscles for more effective use rather than using fire magic in a different manner. Laius considers the possibility that it's due to their skills, but the professor mentions that research has disproven that hypothesis. Haru then suggests that it could be because fire possesses an enhancement as a hidden attribute. The professor is shocked by his awareness of hidden attributes, which were only briefly mentioned in the latest research paper by Weiss-Owl, a person whose identity is unknown, and whose research remains several generations ahead of theirs. She's impressed by Haru's talent, and attempts to persuade him to join her research lab, but Haru declines the offer, and Iris requests the professor not to keep asking students to join her. The professor wonders if Haru might be Weiss-Owl, and he denies it, but suspects that it might be Char. Meanwhile, the midget professor is delighted that they secured an extension for their lab. The clone Haru realizes that this was their primary motive for recruiting the students. The professor plans to celebrate this news, and asks Haru and Iris to wait in the study room. Later, they hear Polkos scream, and find Schneidel lying unconscious on the ground. They discover that Schneidel sought help because he suspected ancient magic had been cast on him. The professor explains the situation to them, describing the cylinder stuck in his arm, and mentions that attempting to use healing magic would press the cylinder against his shoulder. The cylinder only allows non-living objects to pass through, and it seems like barrier magic without attributes. She suspects it's an ancient magic because modern magic spells typically disappear within 12 hours, yet this one has persisted for about 2 days, and believes that the spell caster is likely above level 80. The professor reveals that the spell was cast by someone present with Schneidel. Iris denies any involvement, stating she lacks the ability to perform such advanced magic. Professor then proceeds to slap Schneidel to wake him up, and tells him to reveal the identity of the person who casted the spell. Schneidel explains about Shiva, but he doesn't know Shiva's real identity. The professor starts to suspect the clone Haru, as Shiva appears in places where he is present. Clone Haru realizes that she might be onto them, but just then the original Haru appears as Shiva, and the clone realizes that he has been watching them. Shiva tells her that he has nothing to do with Haru, and he is just here to punish the evil creating chaos in the capital. The professor is more amazed by his appearance, which she finds attractive. She wonders how he knows about the evil organization in the academy, and Shiva is surprised that it actually exists. He offers to remove the spell if Schneidel withdraws from the duel, and Schneidel agrees. As Shiva prepares to leave, the professor restrains him, and tells him that she has 271 questions for him. Shiva realizes that the professor specializes in a combination of earth and dark magic. He easily breaks free from the restraints, and freezes her. Polkos asks her to apologize to Shiva, but instead of being scared, the midget professor is more curious, and tells him that her question count has gone to 824. As a bargaining chip, she's willing to give him the honor of taking her V card. However, Shiva is a man of culture who is only interested in his sister, and is not into ugly old midgets like her. Suddenly, the professor has a sudden urge to pee, so she apologizes and asks to be released, as she doesn't want to wet herself in front of her students. Shiva makes her promise not to come looking after him, and leaves. The professor is released from her restraints, and Polkos reminds her of her urgent need to use the restroom, which she had forgotten. Later, we see Tirieta throwing a welcoming party for Haru clone and Iris. Polkos tells the clone that they are similar in the way they get caught up in things. The clone learns that he was a tutor for the Lucijanel family, and was Professor Tia's teacher. Polkos mentions that she was highly intelligent, and successfully completed various experiments. Eventually, she ran out of things to do at home, so she entered the academy, and Polkos was assigned to watch over her. She was a true prodigy who didn't need any teachings from him, but he's frustrated as she chose to study ancient magic, which is a lost magic. Iris then approaches the clone, she is drunk, and invites him to drink. Although he refuses, she pours a drink into his glass, but drinks it herself. She thanks him for joining the lab, and falls asleep on his lap. The clone puts Iris on the sofa, and a drunk Professor Tia approaches him. She tells him that Iris has control over all the attributes, and has joined her lab to know about increasing her level, as it is known that many people who knew ancient magic in the past were over level 100 and above. Iris is currently stuck at level 5 out of 35, which is very low for her age, and she hopes that the ancient magic research will help her. Since Tia hadn't researched this extensively, she is excited about this new area of study, and eventually falls asleep beside Iris. Meanwhile, Schneidel was worried about the news of his withdrawal from the duel tomorrow, as if this happened, his plan to make his father king would be ruined. He called for his men, revealing his intention to assassinate Haru, along with Iris, Tia, and Polkos. However, it seemed that Haru was already watching them with his spycam magic. Outside Tia's mansion, the assassination squad prepared to attack, consisting of 20 elite members. As they attempted to advance, they encountered an invisible barrier. One of the men mentions that it could be Shiva, whom the Lord has mentioned, and they try to break the wall, but it doesn't budge. Suddenly, a door appeared, and as one of the men opened it, he was pulled inside. The assassins used their strongest spell to destroy the door, but it easily absorbed their attack, leaving them in shock. Multiple doors started to appear, grabbing their men. Shiva then appears through one of the doors, immediately coming under attack from their fire spell. Just then, more doors opened, and Shiva appeared from all of them, shocking the assassins. Their captain tries to attack him, but Shiva cancels his spell and froze his movements, along with the rest of his men. Shiva demands that he reveal all the information, and the captain wonders what in the hell he signed up for. We then see Schneidel, who is shocked to see all his men defeated, and Shiva questions him about the assassination plot. Schneidel attempts to deny it, but Shiva presents him with the recording in which he ordered the assassination. Schneidel is shocked, and wonders what kind of magic this is. Shiva then threatens to increase his punishment, but Schneidel injects himself with some drug, and transforms into a huge monster. Shiva gets punched out of the mansion by the monster, but being an overpowered MC, he remains unharmed. Although Shiva initially wants to run away, Char contacts him, and learns about the monster situation. She asks him to save Schneidel, and Shiva decides to engage the monster while broadcasting the battle live to Char. He engages the monster, and uses his barrier magic to strike it. However, his attacks have no effect, and the monster captures Shiva with its hands. Shiva then uses his barrier magic to restrain both of the monster's hands. In response, the monster cuts off both of his own arms to free itself, and regenerates new ones. As Shiva thinks about his next move, Char contacts him and mentions that the monster has reduced in size. Shiva decides to continue attacking to further weaken it, and potentially force it back into its original form. He uses his 1000 sword magic, to rain down swords and other objects from the clouds, which slices the monster. Schneidel reverts to his original form, revealing his full plot armor. However, Shiva decides to censor it with a white light, while Char wonders why she can't see Schneidel's Excalibur. Schneidel appears to have lost his mind, and walks away on all fours like a dog. Later that night, the clone reflects on the welcome party they had, and finds it enjoyable. Shiva also feels the same, stating that it's not so bad to be involved with people. He asks the clone to stay the night, as it's past curfew time, and then leaves. We then see Flay and Liza inquiring about the evil cult in the capital. A few men approach them to provide information, who plan to take advantage of the pretty girls. However, these poor guys have picked the wrong girls to mess with, and end up getting beaten up. They eventually reveal everything they know. Later, during the roundtable meeting, Char learns that the king and queen are on bad terms, and other nobles are making their moves. Johnny thinks that they are already on the move, considering the recent attack on Haru, and requests Char to replay the battle video. Char suspects that Schneidel received orders from the Dark Student Council, which is part of a larger evil organization. She devises a plan to infiltrate the academy to gather more information, and expose those involved with the evil organization. Everyone agrees with Char's plan, and Liza suggests that they give their roundtable meeting group a name. Char names the group Camelot, and the meeting concludes. Meanwhile, Haru has been monitoring the entire meeting using his spycam magic, and suspects Giselot's involvement. He plans to monitor Char and others closely, so that they can investigate safely, and this is all for his peaceful and safe hold-up life. This is where the video ends. If you enjoyed this recap, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. I need all of your support to help my channel grow. Thanks for watching.